Hello and welcome. I'm Maite Moreno Ugartemendia, and this is a new episode of Proyecto Co, the podcast channel of Efecto Colibrí, a channel inspired by the words that start with co: community, consciousness, co-creation, co-evolution, and of course, Colibrí, which in Spanish means hummingbird. We have honest conversations with change makers to explore mindsets and initiatives for positive change. The stories we tell and the stories we listen to have the power to regenerate our perception of ourselves and others. Stories regenerate. This is why at Efecto Colibrí we produce and distribute podcast content to inspire you to create a just, equitable and regenerative reality for all. Discover more at www.efectocolibri.com. What does a true homecoming look like? Is it enough if we enjoy nature? How can positive psychology help us to reconnect with our most authentic selves? Are you willing to stand in your power and effect the change needed? So, Annie, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you.
Oh, it is my absolute pleasure. It really is. I've been looking forward to meeting you again and just to see what comes of this conversation.
My pleasure. So here we are, the two of us, and my first question is, how would you like this conversation to go?
Oh, how would I like this conversation to go? I want it to flow. I want it to be me and you in this space, having an honest and really... Is deep a good word? That's where I tend to go. So a deep conversation about the world, about my world, but also the world. That's how I would love it to go, so that we both learn from this experience. And hopefully the listeners learn as well.
Beautiful. So here we go. So how would you introduce yourself?
Well, firstly, I love this question. It's so beautiful. It's so empowering. And I have so many ways that I introduce myself. So it's a really good question. How would I like to introduce myself? I would like to say that I am an adventurer through life, that I am a disruptor, that I love sea swimming. I'm a mum. I love standing on top of the headland in a roaring storm. And I love working with people and really helping them understand themselves more and, how life impacts them, how their experiences have impacted them. And, I partner with people. So I'm a coach and I partner with people to really find out who they are and how that impacts their career, them as leaders, them as partners, business owners. So that's what I do as well. So that's how I would introduce myself.
That's incredible and touching, and it sounds authentic, And I would really want to ask you something about your childhood, because you grew up in the hills in England. And what was your childhood like, and how did influence your work?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, this, because I actually wrote a couple of years ago, I visited where I grew up again, and I wrote about it because I could suddenly see the sort of threads coming into my life again, and it's sort of coming full circle. I grew up in the hills, near the moors in the Peak District, which is in the sort of heart of England. And we had a small holding. We were literally in the middle of nowhere. We didn't have any neighbours, and we looked across a valley and had this extraordinary view. So there was a real sense of safety from a very deep part of me, you know, that whole concept of being on top of a hill and being able to see everything. So we had huge freedom. I knew every inch of that land. There were 2 streams on it, and we used to play in the streams, and we were gone all day. You know, parents didn't have a clue where we were, and I was the youngest of 3. We just had such freedom, and boy, did we use our imagination. I was the youngest, so I was the one who was left, you know, to straddle alongside or behind my elder brother and sister, who would leave me hidden in the bracken for hours while they went off exploring, and I was quite happy. So there was a freedom, there was independence, and we had chickens, we had pigs, we had, you know, I remember it was the oil crisis in the 70s, and we had a big vegetable garden, and we had pigs. Mum used to cut the pigs up on the kitchen table and barter with nearby, you know, farms for bits of lamb, and we had big chest freezers. And so we were living, you know, not subsistence. My dad had, you know, a job, you know, in management consultancy, actually, at the time. Early doors of coaching, very interestingly. Wasn't called that, but, you know. So my childhood was in, you know, my parents and my wider family instilled this rod of independence and confidence. And I think how that impacts and influences my life now is that I have, when I set up in business 8 years ago, I had no idea how to do it, but had absolute full confidence that it would work. So when I offer a new venture, I offer it going, it'll work. And if it doesn't, that's okay. Something else will. So this confidence piece, it was instilled in me from such an early age, and I feel so incredibly grateful for that. But also this love of the land and real deep connection to it. That's how it influences my life, my work, and the way I parent who I am. Yeah.
I was thinking, what a powerful set of skills and value, you know? Self-confidence is like, and connection with nature, with all around us, is like a gift.
It's such a gift. It is such a gift. It's like gold dust. It's what people come to me for, you know, to find that confidence that maybe was instilled at an early age, but has got lost on the way or buried on the way. And maybe it was never there in the first place, and they've got to start building it now. So I feel really fortunate to have had that. Listen, I'm not saying that everything is rosy and was rosy and has been rosy forever. I lose it a bit, it comes back. But it's so deeply ingrained that it's never really gone. So there's always a thread there.
And you studied agriculture, don't you? In the first place.
I did. That was my first degree. Yeah. Well, I did try and do some business systems, it was called at the time. And I didn't like that very much. So I moved into agriculture, but also agriculture with equine business management as well. So horses and farming. And I studied at the Royal Agricultural University in Cirencester. And it really set the foundations for the work I do now. And again, that's come full circle. It really has. So when I moved into coaching 8 years ago, never did I think that my first love would come back and I'd be able to meld all of my worlds together. I feel that has so much to do with me refinding myself, almost having gone through a period of maybe losing myself a little bit, and this sort of returning to the deeper core of me means that all of these different facets from my life are all coming together as one, which makes look, you can see it makes me smile.
It sounds like homecoming.
Yeah, it feels like it. And it's only in these sorts of conversations that it becomes clear. Yeah, this homecoming. Huh.
And when we met, I remember we talked about soil and symbiosis.
Yeah.
What these natural processes teach you about humans?
Yeah, I love thinking about symbiosis and, soil structure and the natural processes of, the mycorrhizal networks and fungal networks, and how everything is so interconnected. And that's where I feel I can be a bit of this disruptor type thing, because in coaching, very often we're working with the individual and just the individual as them, and working almost in isolation. And I like to poke at that and think, hang on, we can't just operate. We will not flourish. We've flourished as a species. Boy, have we flourished to the detriment of the earth and probably the species itself. Now, we can't, I don't believe, go forward without becoming more connected and working in symbiosis with each other, and really strengthening those bonds that I feel we've sort of created. We've pulled apart, the world of this technology, which is so wonderful in so many ways, has also pulled us apart. And, there is a focus on individuality at the moment. And I want to poke at that, because I do not feel we can operate and flourish in isolation. So the networks, the connections, the helping each other out in that symbiotic relationship, that's what is really clear to me, that we need to come back to nature. We are part of nature. We are not separate, and come back to it and go, hang on, let's remember all of these things that actually we used to do so well in terms of small societies, really these social groups that supported one another internally. So that's how I feel. We just need to remember those natural processes. We are animals. We are part of nature.
Well, I can't agree with you more, It's like, I'm a coach too, and I was very critical with coaching approach in that sense. I mean, we can't, even if we want to, we can't do it alone, and we can't do it without taking into account that we are part of the context and we are a net of relationships. So this isolated view, what you are saying, in fact, is such important for me too. So I can't agree with you more, actually. Thank you. Thanks for that.
I love that net of relationships. What a almost like a spider's web of relationships, this gorgeous. Thank you.
Thank you. And after agriculture, you've studied positive psychology too. And
yes,
that makes me wonder about your strengths and what are the ones that make you feel proud of? And more importantly, how has been the process of owning them?
Yeah. I think it's probably, I'm going to check myself here. I think it's the most important work I've done on myself is really recognizing, but then really digging into and then utilizing my strengths. So the work that I did with Miriam Akhtar and Bridget Grenville-Cleave on positive psychology, I leaned into the VIA strengths, so values in action, Martin Seligman's 24 character strengths. And that's what I tend to utilize. And so my top strengths are curiosity, gratitude, honesty, appreciation of beauty and excellence, and humor, funnily enough. And once I started recognizing those and recognizing them more fully, where they show up, where they may be overplayed a little, where they may be a little underplayed, I really, the most powerful exercise that I ever did, I think, is how can I utilize a strength or a combination of strengths to overcome a challenge or to achieve a goal. Now, when I focus down on something, when I remember, because of course I'm human, I forget. And that's the beauty of practice. When I remember, it makes a difference. When I start to think really about what strengths can I utilize in this situation, that's true authenticity. That's true authenticity. And that's when you really own your power, I suppose. You stand in your power and you utilize it. Because we are all unique. And even though those 24 strengths, there are 24 character strengths, but each one we will all own differently, just slightly differently. I will own my humor differently to somebody else, even though they may be the top strength. So, yeah, I've loved really leaning into strengths and, and also the overplaying piece. I think that's probably one of the most useful pieces of information that I can pass on to people as well. That actually, when they feel that something is a bit off, it could be that they're just overusing a strength, and actually, if they dial it back down a little bit, then actually they'll be far more. They'll be utilizing their strengths to their optimum and really flourishing. So yeah, strengths, definitely a go-to for me.
I love it. Oh, thanks. And let me feel it. I was thinking while you were speaking that if we are able to pay attention to our strengths, I remember that Tara Brach is one of my favorite psychologists, an American psychologist, says that attention is the most basic form of love. So if it applies in interpersonal relationships, of course, but also in our internal relationships. So if we pay attention to our goals, to our strength, I think we have a very valuable asset to offer to the world. So that's very beautiful. Thanks for sharing yours with me.
Yeah. There's an acknowledgement, a self-acknowledgement and a that's self-love. If we really recognize our strengths and we show them, we demonstrate them, there's this beautiful, again, this symbiosis, we are being kind to ourselves by recognizing that gold, but equally what we can give the world by really owning and utilizing our strengths is so much more than if we're covering them up or not even in touch with them. Yeah.
So speaking about relationships, I would really love to hear from you about nature's blueprint. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I can. And every time I articulate this, it's becoming clearer and clearer. This has been, I suppose, in motion in my mind in embryonic form since maybe I was a child. But certainly in the last 2 years, I have really been knowing that my work was missing something. And it was missing that real purpose-led, passion-led, wider impact piece. And Nature's Blueprint has come about from my own sense of dissatisfaction with how we view nature and are certainly in the last few years viewing nature as almost a healing balm for us. And that is great. And I love that. But for me, there was always and now what? Because if there is no now what, and we carry on as we are, then yeah, great. Oh, brilliant. We feel a bit better when we're in trees and nature, but it's not going to be there for much longer if we carry on. So it was born out of a real deep, strong sense of anger, actually, that we need to respond. But how can we respond if we haven't reconnected back to nature, back to being part of nature? So I have slowly formed this model of change. I think it's ever so simple. And it is about reconnecting people with nature, with a bit of education about soil health. So going back to my agricultural roots and how that impacts gut health, how that impacts mental health and physical health, and how all of it impacts and is interconnected with planetary health. So Nature's Blueprint is a model of change, but it's also a movement. So we've created a day to experience the model, but also we are creating a community with the founding members who attend that day, a community from all walks of life, from organizations, from communities, and that community is going to be able to go, it'll be fully resourced to go out and effect change with others, reconnect them so that they can reimagine a different future. So there's so much involved in it, and I could talk about it for hours. But, you know, there's for me, I had to come to a place where I'm not a climate scientist, I'm not an ecologist, I'm not an agronomist. But what I am really good at is creating a space for people to really do different thinking, disrupt their thinking and get creative. And I believe that's what's needed. We need to get back to in relation with each other, with nature, with the natural world, in order to reimagine what's possible, the art of the possible, and then respond.
That's beautiful. And that reminds me of a story that the mother of biomimicry says that in her consultancy firm, they invite engineers who were studying how to I don't know how to say it in English, but like take out the salt.
Yeah. Desalination, I think.
Desalination. Okay. That's a new word for me.
It'll do for now.
Yeah. So she gathered with these engineers that they had been studying this process for many, many years, and she invited them to dive, to literally to dive into the sea. And these engineers, very professional and very serious guys, started to cry, because of connection, because this irresistible part of being one thing and honoring the beauty and the mysterious nature of nature, being redundant, So how important is to hold the space for people to reconnect with themselves, with others, with nature around. So I honor your work.
Yeah, I absolutely hear you. And it's been, I sometimes I would have introduced myself as a curator of adventures. I didn't today, but that's how I have created adventures before, in the mountains, by the sea. That is that exact thing. It's the opportunity to reconnect with yourself, with others, with nature. And boy, it makes a difference to the thinking that can happen as a result. That deep part of us that is yearning. Why do you think we all gravitate to these, we gravitate to the edge where land meets sea, or, we gravitate to the forest. We gravitate. Of course we do. We're yearning for it.
So, what are 3 practices that you apply to take care of yourself in order to be healthy enough to keep making an impact?
Yeah. Do you know, I had a call with a potential client this week, and she asked me that question in a different way, but I thought, wow, what a brilliant question to ask of someone who you're going to trust to do the work with you, to show up every time. No one's ever asked me that before. And she asked, what are the processes that you have to make sure that you can do the work so that you're not stressed? And, I'm really relished that question. And so in a professional sense, I talked about my supervision and things like that. But in this sense, my own well-being, the first one is when I first came across positive psychology, I started a gratitude diary. And that was 7 years ago. And I am on book 33, notebook 33.
Oh my God.
I know, every single night it's by my bed and I have this beautiful ink pen. So it's a beautiful ink pen, but it's got orange ink, and I love orange. And so it invites me, so that every single page is covered with 5 things that I am grateful for. So every night, I absolutely, without fail, I do that. And that, it is such a beautiful time to reflect on the day. So that's certainly one thing. That's top of my list from a well-being point of view. The other thing, every day I will get out for a walk, and every day I make sure, I don't even have to make sure, it happens. It just happens. I notice things. I notice birds, bees, butterflies, weeds. I don't like the term weeds, but plants that shouldn't be growing where they are, those little things. And I love the fact that has sort of filtered down to my children. I was walking to school the other day, my son, my 9-year-old, and he stopped. He went, "Wait, Mum, hang on." And he picked up this little eggshell, which was, it was quite a way off the path. So he's got these, he really notices, and he picked it up, and he cradled it, and he took it in for show and tell. So that sort of almost, I think that they call it an awe walk now, AWE, an awe walk. That's what I do, very much so. And it also, that movement, mindful movement, is so important. And very much now, more than ever, and far more than, it's a real conscious thing. I eat for nourishment, for my body and for the planet. So I try and eat organic, locally produced, if I can, regeneratively, from regenerative agriculture. But the nourishment piece is really important to me. And that I've had to work really hard on different mindsets around eating and relationships with food. But I feel that has made a huge difference to my well-being. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Thanks. Well, gratitude, awe, mindful movement, eat, healthy eating. So, what else? Thanks for that. And I was wondering if you have this final message regarding regeneration, both personal and collective. Do you want to share something with us?
A final message I would say is get curious. Get curious. I think curiosity is key for all of us going forward. Understanding ourselves, asking questions of ourselves, each other, systems that are in place. If we can get curious and voice our curiosity and listen, I think we will be in a better place.
Thank you. Thank you. I really want to thank you. Thanks for sharing your personal and professional path. It's such a gift to have the chance to be here with you, and also for infusing the air with your uplifting energy. I mean it. Thank you. Thank you. It's such a nice experience. Yeah.
Bless you. Thank you. I've got tears in my eyes because I wear my heart on my sleeve. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure and privilege to talk through my story and my truth. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. You can find all the references of the episode on our website, www.efectocolibri.com/proyectoco. If you like it, rate us with 5 stars, leave us a comment, and share it with your network. This will help us reach more people and make social innovation become the norm. In advance, thank you. If you have questions, feedback, or want to introduce us to a guest for the podcast, you can write directly to us at maite@efectocolibri.com. See you next time.